Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well. This is actually my third podcast of the day. I did one this morning talking about the NFL. Then I did one later on the day, did one with Casey Ward, a frequent guest here on the show, where we broke down we did an NHL playoff previewed all of round one. That'll be dropping tomorrow, so be ready for that. It'll be about 9 a.m. tomorrow. You'll see that on your timeline, and I'm recording this one today. And just talking about some big stories in the world of sports. We got the NBA finishing up. We got the NFL with the schedule release. We got the Byron Nelson tournament in golf this weekend. And we also have some news in the NHL, outside of the playoffs, where we got Jack Eichel fighting. We got David Quinn getting fired in New York. So a number of things to talk about today. And I was a little MIA this week, so I thought I'd record a bunch of content today because, as you guys know, I got a lot to say about a lot of things. So get that all out of the way. And, the NFL, they are better than anybody at marketing. And it's not even close. We're not talking about games. There's not a preseason NFL game till mid-August. We are mid-May. Yet a schedule release gets more buzz than any game in the NBA, NHL, or you name a sport. Wednesday night was the schedule release for the NFL season. Now, we know these games before they happen. We just don't know when they're going to happen. When a team finishes a season, depending on your record, you get decided who you're going to play in the other conferences, who you're going to stack up against. If you're NFC, what AFC opponents, what division are you going to play? So we knew the Bucs schedule beforehand. We just didn't know who they're going to play. And it's crazy. We know the games, but yet we're still loving it. And maybe not everybody in Canada, maybe listening, you're like, who gives a crap about the NFL schedule? I got more important things to think about. I do. I was enthralled. To talk NFL any time of the year to me is good. It's wholesome. It's fun. And again, the schedule release on ESPN is a bigger deal than any NBA item you could name. NFL Network, Fox Sports 1, ESPN. Wednesday night, that was the feature show. The NFL schedule release. Screw Wizard Hawks. Screw Leaf Senators. Yeah, who gives a crap about that game? It doesn't matter. It's the NFL. And looking at week one, I think the NFL made a smart and stupid decision all at the same time, which is, of course, makes a lot of sense to me because I'm a double negative person. I'm not negative, I like double negatives. That's what I'm getting at here. First game of the season, Thursday night. It always features the defending Super Bowl champion. Bucs and Chiefs are not meeting on their schedules this year, so you can't put the rematch night one. They like to do that. So what are they going to do? Bucs against who are they going to stack up against? Who do they put? Bucs Cowboys. So Tom Brady playing America's team, quote unquote. And of course, this is the most sellable game all year. And the reason I question putting it on week one is because this game would do crazy ratings in mid-November. There's normally not a fatigue to the NFL season, but if there is, why not keep this game for later? Get Bucs Falcons. I know that might not sound that sexy, but you get Kyle Pitts, you get his first game. Bucs Giants, Bucs Rams, I think would have been a great option. There's a number of games that would have been Bucs Bears. Maybe Justin Fields makes his debut against Tom Brady. But I understand it. You have Dallas, who the last 3 years, here's a stat for you. Last 3 years, Dallas has had the most views of their games of any other team, and it's not even close. It's by millions. So Dallas brings box office. But NFL opening night, people are watching that game regardless, because they haven't had football since early February. Now, I get it. You want to start off this season, set the tenor for the season, the biggest NFL season in history, not necessarily because of the competition, but because it's 17 games. It's an 18-week schedule. The Super Bowl is ending the day before Valentine's Day, February 13th. Normally, it's getting done the first weekend in February. It's different this year because the extra week. Every team's playing 17 games. The Dallas Cowboys can't finish 8-8 anymore. That was what they're known for forever. And there's a number, the Bucks Cowboys week 1. The other game that's really, really intriguing to me, Browns Chiefs. Obviously, it's a rematch of the AFC divisional game. Patrick Mahomes went out in the game. Browns had the ball late in the fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield and the Browns go 4-0. Chad Henne, anything is possible. 4th and 1, throws a pass to Tyreek Hill. They ice the clock. Now, I'm going to be talking about the AFC North next week in my divisional update preview series of podcasts that I did my first one this morning about the AFC South. Now, the Browns are a legitimate threat to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. The Browns used to be a doormat, used to be a joke. They are no longer a joke. The Buffalo Bills used to be a doormat, used to be a joke. They are no longer a joke. These teams that are in the basement finally have stability. You have Brian Daboll as your offensive coordinator in Buffalo. You also have Sean McDermott as head coach. You have Brandon Beane as GM. You have stability with terrible ownership with the Pagulas, but at least you have stability there. Then in Cleveland, you hire Kevin Stefanski, the first coach that has had any success in forever in the dog pound. Who doesn't want to see Cleveland do well? Even if you hate Cleveland, if you hate the AFC North, you hate Pittsburgh, it's hard to hate Cleveland. They're a likable team. Their fans show up in the cold every week, and they're just blue-collar, good people. And you got Browns, Chiefs. Again, Baker Mayfield looking to improve upon last season where in his final 9 games, he had 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, the best margin in the NFL. And I'm sure the Browns are still sitting there today saying, we should have beaten Kansas City. Mahomes was done. We should have won that game, which is a fair sentiment. And we go play the Bills. Why couldn't we beat the Bills? It would be Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen as quarterbacks, first career championship game. So they're both green in that scenario. Why couldn't we beat the Bills? They're banged up. We learned after the game. Cole Beasley was playing on a broken leg. Stephon Diggs had a torn oblique. Bills have no run game. They're decimated. Why couldn't the Browns get through that? What do? They have a great draft. They get Greg Newsome Greg Newsome Jr. the third, as Dan Patrick would say, from Northwestern. Really good corner. Greedy Williams is coming back after an injury. Grant Delpit, the safety out of LSU, tore his ACL week 1. He's going to return. They also get Asua Karamoa from Notre Dame, the linebacker, at 52nd overall. This guy had a heart issue. This kid can freaking ball, and he will tear it up. They still have arguably one of the best pass rushers in the NFL in Myles Garrett, and they had Jadeveon Clowney to put upon the other side. Their defense is just flat out loaded. Then you look at on offense, Baker Mayfield. Is he the most dynamic quarterback? No. But we saw when he gets weapons, when he has a stable team around him, he doesn't have to do everything. You don't have to force him. And their team, they got weapons galore. You have Austin Hooper. You have Jarvis Landry. You have Rashard Higgins. Odell Beckham Jr., as of right now, is still on the roster. He's due to come back. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones out of Michigan. You have a team. And you also have the best 1-2 running back duo in the NFL with Kareem Hunt and with Nick Chubb. So they have all the trappings of being a team that's going to threaten the Chiefs, and I like it. I think this could have been later in the season. It may have been more interesting to say, well, week 1, both teams are going to be a little bit rusty, but it sets a tenor again for the season. Also week 1, you got Steelers-Bills. These two teams met in week 15. You got the Steelers, who are going to be intriguing this season because it's their last kick at the can. Ben Roethlisberger's coming back for one final season, arguably. I'd be surprised if he came back for more, but who knows? They load up. They bring back the receivers. They draft Najee Harris out of Alabama, the star running back. They look like they're going to be contenders. Then you get the Bills. Can they keep the momentum going? They went to an AFC Championship last game. Josh Allen was second MVP voting behind Aaron Rodgers. What happens there? Can he keep it going? Can they keep that offense? Can they get a running back and have a running game? That's their big question, and build on what they did last season. You also got Matthew Stafford making his Rams debut, playing the Bears. Is it Andy Dalton on Sunday Night Football? Is it Justin Fields playing for the Bears? I like that. I think the Rams are going to be a really intriguing team to watch. The Rams have Tampa Bay and Tom Brady in week 3. That division's loaded. I mean, San Francisco, they finished last year in the division, but they're a lot better. Jimmy Garoppolo's back healthy. They drafted the kid out of North Dakota State in Trey Lance. When does he play? Does he start from the beginning? They still have George Kittle. They still have Deebo Samuel. They still have Brandon Ayuk. What happens there? So that's super intriguing. And then Monday Night Football week 1, I wasn't super intrigued about the game. Then I heard Louis Riddick talk about it. He obviously does Monday Night Football, so he has to sell it, but I think he did a good job. It's Ravens, Raiders from Vegas. We saw how beautiful Allegiant Stadium was last year in Las Vegas, but there's no fans. And again, I don't care about fans. I really don't. I listen to the game with no sound, but it's about bringing the NFL back. And why not do that Monday Night Football? Pack the bastard with fans, and you have that beautiful stadium. Sunday night, you get the beautiful stadium in LA where the Super Bowl is going to be held this year. It's just a perfect ending. It's a perfect start to a season where you get fans in Vegas, you get Mark Davis there waving the flag, you get John Gruden, Chucky the Doll there, and you get Lamar Jackson on Monday Night Football. So the more I think about it, it makes a ton of sense. So week 1, great stuff. And there's more storylines. I think you look at the NFC East, worst division in football. Where does that go? Is Ryan Fitzpatrick good enough to get Washington to win the division? How's Dak Prescott going to look coming back from a career-threatening injury? The Giants go out, add Kenny Golladay, add Kadarius Toney, add Darius Jackson on defense, bring back Leonard Williams, get some receivers for Daniel Jones. Can he win the division? Can he prove that he's a starting quarterback, or did they need to look elsewhere? So there's options there. How does Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts connection work after their time in Alabama? Tons to chew on. Also in week 1, you got Sam Darnold, the former Jets quarterback, now Carolina Panther, playing the Jets in Carolina. Zach Wilson's debut will be against the former Jets quarterback. How about that? Love it. Normally that game would have no juice. It's a great storyline. It's a great game. You also got Saints-Packers. Jameis Winston's the heir of New Orleans without Drew Brees. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be the quarterback for Green Bay? Pretty good stuff. Now, as you sift through the schedule, there's a game on week 4 on Sunday Night Football that will be one of the biggest games in the last decade. And what's this game? Sunday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are heading to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots. Tom Brady will make his return to Boston to play his former coach, his former team on the bright lights of Sunday Night Football. They didn't meet last year. Brady leaves New England. In his first season, he wins the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. Sticking it to Bill Belichick saying, I never needed you. You were just there. My first season without you, I win my way. I bring in the players I want. I finally get a say in what we do around here. It's not some military dictatorship where we all have to listen to you and be drones. We can have fun and win football games. You have New England, who went 7-9, missed the playoffs. And looking back, before Belichick got Tom Brady, he won 2 Super Bowls, in New York as a defensive coordinator. So it's impressive, but you're not the head coach. As a head coach in Cleveland, he made the playoffs twice and won 1 playoff game in 5 seasons. So he doesn't have a great resume. This game, neither of them will say it's a big game. But of course it is. Bill Belichick wants to win this game more than any game he's ever coached, I guarantee you. Because he wants to beat Tom Brady. Right now, Tom Brady's 1 up. Tom Brady's going to stay up even if he loses the game because guess what? He won a Super Bowl without Bill. Bill can't say that. But if you beat him, you rough him up a little bit, you go with the win. At least you got a little bit of your pride back. But this is a huge game. I love it. And we know when it's happening. And I'm telling you, I don't know when in Canada we can go to leave this country without having to fucking quarantine. But next season, there's some games I would love to go to. And that's one of them. Any NFL game next year, and anybody wants to go, Give me a ring because I'm in. I don't care where it is. I don't care what the weather is. We'll bundle up. We'll go watch a game. Because, number one, I've never been to one. And how about the juice in this one? It's personal for both these guys. Brady got kicked out of New England. Let's just be honest. He tried to get kicked out. Bill tried to kick him out in 2017. He had Jimmy Garoppolo, and Bill wanted to move on from Tom Brady. Then Tom Brady had to go up to Robert Kraft and basically say, help me, Bill. And Bill calls Tom Brady Tommy. He said he's like a son to him. He's vetoed Bill and said, no, we're keeping Tom Brady. Worked out. They won 2 Super Bowls. But Bill wanted to move on with Garoppolo, and that always hurt his pride. So he traded Garoppolo to San Francisco. We see what happened with that. They made it to a Super Bowl. They ultimately lost to Kansas City. But Brady's always been treated just like every other player. We all know in sports, when you're an elite athlete, you get a break. When you get different treatment. Yeah, you're supposed to all be treated equally. It doesn't work like that. I'm not saying the other guys are treated like shit, but you get a little bit more respect. You get a little more say in the process. Tom never got that in New England because he was torched. He was treated like one of 53. And for better or worse, it worked. They won 6 Super Bowls together. But Tom went to Tampa where he wasn't treated like one of 53. He was given more of a say. He got to bring in Antonio Brown. He signed Gronk. He recruited Leonard Fournette. And what happened? They won a Super Bowl and they had fun. They weren't drones, like I mentioned. It's just a different atmosphere. And I really don't think either guy particularly likes the other. So you want to beat your enemy. And for Brady, going back to Foxborough, who knows? This could be your last trip there. He said he wants to play as long as he can, but you're 44. Eventually the wheels will fall off. I've never seen longevity like Brady, but you're playing a physical sport, and yeah, you can't hit the quarterback anymore, but it's going to happen eventually. And maybe this is one last hurrah. I think he's a favorite to get back to the Super Bowl, of course, looking at their roster. But again, it's an opportunity for both men to get a little bit of revenge on the other. There's also some big games. You got Kansas City, Buffalo in week 5. That's a game that has a lot of juice. You also get Kansas City, Cleveland and Baltimore, of course. That rivalry in the AFC North will be interesting to watch. With the Browns are really good. I think the Ravens got a lot better. Steelers, I mentioned, are still fighting. You got Joe Burrow coming back for the Bengals. How does he stack up? So the NFL season is going to be a lot of fun. And we're only in May, and I'm already jacked for it. And you don't get that excited like you do the other sports. And I just think the other sports have to look at this and say, we got to do a better job of promoting our product, because the NFL does it better than any other league. That's just some of the schedule release here. Obviously, it goes deeper than that. There's 2 Christmas Day games because Christmas falls on a Saturday this year. So the NFL keeps moving into the NBA territory where they're taking up airtime, which I'm sure the NBA is not thrilled about. But schedule release, and I almost talked 20 minutes about the schedule release. That tells you everything you need to know about this season. Pivoting to golf. Next week, we will see the PGA Championship live from Kiowa Island in South Carolina. A great course on the water. Last played there, the PGA in 2012, where Rory McIlroy decimated the field, winning by 8 strokes. And last week, heading into Kiowa next week, starting Thursday, of course he wins the tournament last week, gets some momentum. He's taken this week off, but we do have a tournament this weekend, the Byron Nelson, and some big names are in the field trying to get ready for this tournament. And we're midway through Friday, so some guys are through 2 rounds, and we're seeing some good play from Jordan Spieth. Thursday, he shoots 9 under. And first of all, it's impressive to shoot a 63 anytime, but he had not played since the Masters. That was the second week in April. So he's off a month. His first round, he shoots a 63. Today was not quite as sharp. He likes to play in the afternoon better than in the early mornings throughout his career. And today he shoots 2 under, but he's 11 under par, 3 strokes off the lead. He's in good shape going into the weekend. Looking at the leaderboard, I'm just going to pull it up here on my phone. You got leading the tournament, Ki-Hung Lee. Good player, but not exactly a juggernaut. He's at 14 under, shoots 7 under for the day. Really impressive stuff. Then you got Patton Kizzire. He's another guy who's not a big name in the game of golf. He's 11 under, 8 under for the day. Matt Kucher, the veteran. This is kind of like Phil last week, where he shoots 6 under today. He's 11 under for the tournament. Kuch is normally a guy who is right around the cut line, misses the cut or makes it. So we'll see how he does this week. I'm glad that he's up there, though, because I like to see the vet. And you got Spieth. You got Wyndham Clark, Ted Potter Jr., Vincent Whaley, Seamus Power, all at 10 under. There's no big name at the top of the leaderboard. And yesterday's leader was JJ Spawn and Spieth. Spawn is yet to tee off. He's at 9 under to start the day. But you got Lee Westwood, who's at 9 under. He shoots 8 under for the day. So we're seeing some really, really low rounds. But for Spieth, the big thing for him is just his turnaround. How he went from a guy that is basically Ricky Fowler right now. Ricky Fowler is still a big name because he's in a lot of ads, but his play is terrible. Jordan Spieth was missing cuts. He had no confidence in his driver. His putting game was a mess. But we see that he's rising. He's 8th in the FedEx Cup rankings. He's a player that hasn't played in a month yet. He shoots 63 in his first round. And I don't think he needs to win this weekend. He won the weekend before the Masters, and he did finish T5 in the Masters. So another really good showing. But he's playing consistently. He's had 5 top 5 finishes already this season, and we're only in May. And he's confident. You can tell he made a long birdie putt to end his round yesterday on 18, and he's just got that swagger of him. He's got some confidence that he's not the Jordan Spieth that was timid, that was afraid to go to Augusta National. He's back to being the guy. And going into this tournament at the PGA, I think Rory McIlroy is clearly a favorite. Again, he's won this at this tournament before. He won at the Byron Nelson because you look at that tournament, he won it 3 times before. And you got a lot of confidence that you can win that one. Spieth, he's never won at this tournament, but he's playing so consistently. I have way more faith in Spieth coming in than Dustin Johnson, where last summer I would say, well, Dustin Johnson's clearly a favorite to win. Dustin Johnson hasn't been playing a lot of golf. He's got a knee injury, and he's missed some cuts, and he's been inconsistent with his driver. So I don't see him as a legitimate threat. Again, Brooks Koepka, he's been injured the past 2 seasons. We haven't seen the best of Brooks. So he's a guy on the outside looking in. Morikawa has not played a lot of golf lately. He won the PGA Championship last year. Should be looking to defend the crown. But if I didn't put a top 3, I still would put Justin Thomas in my top 3 for favorites to win because he's just a really consistent golfer and he seems to rise to the occasion. So he would be there. I would then put Rory McIlroy, who, 2 months ago, couldn't make a cut, it seemed like, but he wins a tournament. When you get a guy of his caliber, you win a tournament, you're automatically back into the swing of things. Then I would go with Spieth because Spieth is just a consistent player. He keeps the ball in the green. If he can stay out of the fescue, he's got a really good chance at winning the tournament. And it wouldn't shock me to see a lower name player make a move too, because again, the guys who win the majors are normally big names, but we've seen the likes of Danny Willett. We've seen Sergio Garcia, Justin Rose. They are at the top of these leaderboards when it comes down to it. And even lately, Sam Burns has won a tournament. We've seen Doc Redman win a tournament. We've seen Stuart Sink win 2 tournaments on tour. So it's really anybody's game because no big name player, Dustin Johnson, the world number 1, has played fantastic. The one you could say who has is DeChambeau. He's won 2 tournaments this year, but how does he do it at this course? It's, again, the water's a threat to him because he's the one that likes to drive the ball as far as he possibly can. So can he keep it on the green? So that's potentially a problem. But I think it's a wide open field. And this weekend, it's a course at the Byron Nelson this weekend where you can really torch it. And I think it'll help a lot of guys have some confidence going into Kiowa. But if it's not one of the 3 I mentioned, Again, DeChambeau, you could put, maybe he's sniffing around, potentially win this the major. But how would go with the field when it comes to a player not ranked in the top 10? Could Patrick Cantlay finally find form? He's a guy that's always in the FedEx Cup ranking, seems to always be in the top 5 T10 when it comes to majors, but he can never close it out. He'll have one bad day, puts him out, and he'll have, put him out of contention where he can't recover. But he's a great golfer. Can he find it? Still a lot to be, Lee Westwood has been a consistent guy. Could he find it? He's an older guy. He's in his mid 40s, but he's been a really consistent player this year. 2 second place, 2 runner-ups. Didn't do great at the Masters after strong play coming in, but how does he favor at this tournament? But we'll see. Obviously this weekend is still a lot to be decided, but Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas is where I'm sitting right now. Maybe I'll have a different opinion by Thursday when the PGA starts, but looking forward to the major, and it's always a big event, and Kiowa is a beautiful course, so looking forward to seeing that next week. We'll pivot to the NBA, where we have to acknowledge Russell Westbrook, and he set a new record in the NBA went Monday night, where he got his 182nd triple-double. Now, if you don't know what a triple-double is, it's where you have at least 10 points, at least 10 rebounds, 10 assists, or you can put 10 blocks, 10 steals. It's when you have 10 of 3 different categories, statistical categories. He's had 182 of those in his career. Now, this season, he's been going bonkers, where we've seen him have a 20 rebound game. The guy's only a 6'2" guard. He's had multiple 20 assist games, and he now he surpassed Oscar Robertson for the most triple doubles in the history of the NBA. Now, I think it's impressive, no doubt. Russell Westbrook is a guard that will go down as likely one of the top 10 best point guards to ever play the game. Now, his coach, Scott Brooks, says he's the second best point guard ever. I do not agree with Scott Brooks. He has to say that. He's his coach. I don't blame him for saying it. But number one, obviously, you got Magic Johnson. Then I would put John Stockton. You got Isaiah Thomas. You got Steph Curry on that list. Gary Payton. There's a lot of good players that I would put before Russell Westbrook. I mean, if you look at the game right now, where's Russell Westbrook? I got James Harden above Russell Westbrook for sure. I mean, James Harden all time, will either of them ever win a chip? They played together in Oklahoma City, and that's a big thing for Westbrook. Will he ever win a championship? And another knock against him is he a selfish player? Now, in the NBA, you can give a lot of assists, and you can have the ball for 20 seconds of the shot clock. You dump it off to somebody, you get the assist. Russell Westbrook has always been top 5 in usage every season he's been in the NBA, meaning he has the ball a ton. And he'll find players, but it pissed off Kevin Durant, where Kevin Durant said, screw this, I'm not going to win a championship with Russell Westbrook. He left Oklahoma City, went to Golden State, won 2 championships. Proof was in the pudding. And Russell Westbrook was in Oklahoma City forever. Played with Chris Paul, that didn't work. Then he went and played with Paul George, that didn't work. Every player that's played with him has left that's been a star. Now, he's played this year with Washington. It looks like they're going to make the play-in tournament. Him and Bradley Beal do have some chemistry there. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's a really impressive accomplishment, and it needs to be celebrated. Oscar Robertson said, and I don't know there's never been an NBA player who plays harder than Russell Westbrook. Night in, night out, this guy, you can't blame him for his lack of trying. He gives it everything he has. He will drive into a brick wall trying to win. But sometimes he does too much. He turns the ball over a ton. He's top 3 in the NBA in turnovers this season. He doesn't particularly shoot the ball well. He just makes stupid decisions, and I wouldn't want him as my point guard. Again, I would have Steph Curry. I would have James Harden. If I thought about it, I would go through point guards. Chris Paul, of course. Donovan Mitchell, I would pick before Russell Westbrook. But the guy cares night in, night out, and his ability to play the game at such a high level, to it's not easy to get rebounds. They can say it's stat padding. Well, whatever. He's got more than anybody. It's like this year, the argument that Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews stacked up points. Well, all these guys could have got points. LeBron James could have more triple doubles, but he doesn't. Russell Westbrook has 182. He's going to continue to add more. Every team he's on, he's going to be the driving force. And until his body breaks down, I don't see him changing the way he plays. So will his record ever be broken? Maybe. I think it's going to be tough because I don't think there's enough guys in the NBA that truly care enough to get a triple-double night in, night out. Again, he's got 182. I believe LeBron has like 87. You think LeBron James, one of the best players in history of NBA, Michael Jordan only has a few triple-doubles. So I think it's kudos to Russell Westbrook. Now this year for him and the Wizards, they're in the 10th seed right now. They haven't clinched a playoff spot yet. I believe they can with a win tonight. They would play Indiana as of now. If they beat Indiana, they would play the loser of the 7-8 game. And if they can get into the playoffs, I believe they could be a factor. They could make trouble for a team because Bradley Beal can shoot the lights out. Again, you got Westbrook. You got Davis Bertans, who's a really gifted three-point shooter. You got Alex Len and Robin Lopez in the paint. And they don't have a stacked team, but Kucher, they got some players that can play the game. And for Westbrook, obviously a really impressive accomplishment, beating Oscar Robertson. But will he ever win a championship? That's what defines you in the NBA. In the NHL, I think it's different. You don't need to win a Stanley Cup. Joe Thornton will always be looked at as a great player. Patrick Marleau, you got that record. This Westbrook stat and Marleau statistic playing the most games is similar to me because Westbrook will be looked at as a great player forever. Patrick Marleau will be looked as a warrior forever playing that many games. But did they ever win? No. Both have been to a finals. Westbrook went to a finals and played the Miami Heat in 2012, lost in 5 games. Played with James Harden, played with Kevin Durant. Couldn't get the win. But we'll see. It would be fun if Brooklyn could somehow sneak into that 1 seed. If the Wizards could get the 8 spot and play Brooklyn in the first round, where you had Harden and Durant, who used to play with Westbrook, they meet in the first round. I think that'd be spicy. That'd be good for the NBA. I think it'd be better than Brooklyn, Charlotte. That's not much meat on the bone there. Brooklyn against the Celtics. There's some intrigue, but I still think Brooklyn gets by them rather easily. And so just thinking of intrigue, obviously out in the West, as of right now, it is Lakers in the 7th spot and the Golden State Warriors in the 8th spot. But there's still a lot to be decided this weekend. There's three days left in the NBA season. It's over on Sunday. If the Portland Trailblazers beat I believe they play Utah. Yeah, they play Utah. If they beat Utah on Sunday, they will be the 6th seed. They will avoid the play-in tournament. The Lakers have 2 games this weekend. They play Indiana tomorrow afternoon. Then they play Saturday night against the Pelicans. If they win both games and Portland loses, they are the 6th seed. Now, if Portland wins, it doesn't matter. The Lakers will be the 7th seed. They'll have to play in the play-in game, and they'll play Golden State or Memphis. Golden State and Memphis play tomorrow. The winner of that game will be the 8th seed. The loser, 9th. 9th will play 10th. That will be Memphis or Golden State playing the Spurs. The winner playing the loser of Golden State and the Lakers. I know it's a little confusing, but that's just how it shakes out. And the winner of 7-8 game gets the 7th seed. Then the winner of 8 versus 9 or 10 will get the 8th seed, and then the playoffs start. And the Lakers obviously are the intrigue. LeBron James has played 2 games in the last 27 and in limited minutes, and they lost both of them. But this week they caught fire. They beat the Phoenix Suns. They beat the Houston Rockets by 2 Wednesday night, and LeBron hasn't played yet. Now, it's reported he's going to play this weekend. I doubt he plays both games on a back-to-back after playing very limited minutes after his sprained ankle. But if him and Anthony Davis can come back healthy, then they're obviously the front runner to make it to the NBA Finals. They would play the Phoenix Suns, the 2 seed, and be a favorite as a 7 seed. I mean, that's unheard of, but that's just how it would work. You got Utah and Phoenix at the top of the Western Conference, where neither of them have particular playoff success. Especially the Suns, they are really playoff virgins other than Chris Paul, because you have Devin Booker, who's never been there. You have DeAndre Ayton, who's never been there. You got Cameron Johnson, who's never been to the playoffs. So their nucleus of star players have never been to the playoffs. That means something in the NBA. LeBron has played more playoff games than anybody. Anthony Davis won a championship last year. Andre Drummond's played in the playoffs. So they got players that have done it. And even if they were to play Golden State against Steph, that would be way better for Phoenix. But Steph Curry's played in a ton of playoff games. He's a 3-time champion. That's a tough matchup. So whoever gets that 7 spot, that's a tough matchup for Phoenix. You don't want that. Even for Utah as the number 1 seed, say the Lakers get the 7 spot, then it's Golden State versus Memphis. You'd rather have Memphis, in my opinion, even though Golden State's undermanned, because Steph Curry, you never know. He could win a series by himself with Draymond chipping in here and there. He could make it interesting. So that's really how it shakes out. But I mentioned earlier in the week that it could be wide open, but I'm starting to think, well, it's not going to be. LeBron's coming back. He's going to be healthy. Anthony Davis is going to be healthy. Dennis Schroeder is going to come off the COVID list for the Lakers. Then in the East, you got Brooklyn. James Harden played the other night, had a double-double and 11 assists in his first game back, and he looks unbelievable. You got Kevin Durant, who I think is the best player in the NBA. Kyrie Irving likely to be healthy. If Brooklyn is whole, if they have all 3 of their stars playing, I don't see who beats them for the championship. They're a little undermanned when it comes to the inside, when it comes to the paint, but their ability to shoot, to make threes is really unquestioned. If I had to pick a third team that I think could make some noise, I would go with the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat made it to the finals last year. They were a surprise team, a 5th seed. They're going to be they're the 5th seed as of right now. They're battling with the Atlanta Hawks coming into the weekend, where they could potentially get to 4th. Atlanta's looking to clinch the 4th seed. You got Atlanta, Miami, and the Knicks all separated by 1 game. So for the 4th, 5th, and 6th seeds. But Miami's got that playoff experience. They got a leader in Jimmy Butler who knows how to play in crunch time. They got the experience from last season. They got Eric Spoelstra, who's got 2 championships to his resume. So they got the team to do it. In Atlanta, this is going to be a new experience for them. Trae Young's never been in the playoffs. John Collins has never been in the playoffs. Bogdanovich, Clint Capella's been there for Houston, but they're kind of like Phoenix. They need to get there, learn how it goes. Then you got the Knicks. The Knicks have been in the playoffs since 2013. They're likely, as of right now, they play Milwaukee. They're a great story. Julius Randle's been a really impressive player this season. But the Knicks, they're likely to bow out in the playoffs, where Tom Thibodeau may be the coach of the year, but the Knicks still have to learn. And you go below, I mentioned the teams below that. So I think the Heat, I like them better than the Sixers, just because I think the Heat have more game breakers. We've seen the Sixers in the playoffs. Embiid, Simmons, they come up small. Jimmy Butler rises to the occasion. Tyler Hero off the bench rose to the occasion last year as a 20-year-old rookie, averaging almost 20 off the bench. Duncan Robinson has turned into one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. Bam Adebayo, stud. So the Miami Heat, I think, would challenge Brooklyn the most and cause them the most problems. That could be a 2nd-round matchup. So Brooklyn gets by them, you get a 3rd round where you're pretty comfortable. In the West, I would say the Clippers. Denver made it to the conference final last year, but they're without Jamal Murray. They're going to miss him down the stretch. Jokic, likely the MVP, has some good players. He's got Michael Porter Jr. They acquired Aaron Gordon. But to not have a ball handler that you really trust down the stretch, that hurts your team. And Jamal Murray will be missed. So I look at the Clippers, who have been eerily quiet all year. They still have Kawhi Leonard. They got Paul George. They acquired Rajon Rondo at the trade deadline, who was with the Lakers last year, who they traded Sweet Lou Williams for. They got Serge Ibaka. They got players that are just Pat Beverly, who likes to piss people off. I think the 2 LA teams could potentially meet in the conference final, where you're both playing at Staples. obviously the Clippers got a lot to prove for Steve Ballmer and Tyronn Lue. And you got the Lakers who are looking to go back-to-back. So that would be my presumed Final Four, because if the teams are back healthy, again, Portland still is a good team. They've won 9 of the last 10, but they're just missing something. With the Lakers at full strength, with Brooklyn at full strength, these two teams should meet in the finals. Now, is that guaranteed? No. I think the Clippers could cause problems. Again, I think the Heat could be a factor in the East, but I'm starting to pivot my thinking into saying, well, these two teams are the presumptive favorites. They'll meet in the finals because health is going to be good for them. But we've seen people injured all year, and that could continue in the playoffs. LeBron could injure his ankle again. He's done, and then the Lakers are done. You're not going to the finals with just Anthony Davis and Kuzma and whoever. You're not beating the Clippers in that series. So we'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of interest here when it comes to the NBA. You got the last weekend of the season. I like seeing teams that, I thought Atlanta would make the playoffs for the year. I didn't think they'd be the 4 seed, but I projected them to be the 8 seed in the East to get to 4th. Incredible. The Knicks making the playoffs. Didn't see that coming. So still some intrigue as we head into the last 3 days of the NBA season, and a lot to be decided. But the play-in tournament starts Tuesday. The NBA playoffs start a week from tomorrow. So that's going to get going. We'll have the NHL playoffs going, the PGA Championship next weekend. So obviously that's fantastic. The NHL. Obviously, like I said this morning, I did a podcast previewing the NHL playoffs. We still have some Leafs Winnipeg meaningless regular season game tonight, which who can't wait to watch that. We got Vancouver and Edmonton over the weekend, Vancouver, Calgary. So still some of these regular season games that need to be finished due to COVID. But this week, we saw some firings, and I think we'll see some more. We saw David Quinn get fired in New York. Jeff Blashill may still be on his way out in Detroit, where he's coached for 6 seasons. But does Stevie Y want to go in a different direction, even with the team in a rebuild? We saw John Tortorella. We saw Rick Tocchet get removed. And if teams struggle in the playoffs, is there still moves to be made? There's a lot of good head coaches on the market. We got Bruce Boudreau, and you got Mike Babcock and Gerard Gallant, and I mentioned Tortorella. So where does that go? Now, Buffalo is likely going to be searching for a new head coach. They had interim coach Don Granato coach the remainder of the season. They were a more credible team, but with Kevin Adams and likely going to be fired off Kruger, I don't think Donnie Granato will be the head coach come next season. They want the fresh voice moving in the future. Now, Buffalo, they got a few problems. Obviously, Jack Eichel's at the top of it, but I'll start with the other names first. Rasmus Ristolainen is a defenseman for Buffalo. He's played there for 8 seasons, the longest tenured Buffalo Sabre. And he got asked, do you want to come back? And he said, I would come back, but I would prefer to be traded. I don't want to have to deal with another rebuild. I don't want to do it. If there's going to be another rebuild, get me the hell out of here. So basically, we know the Sabres are rebuilding again. So he basically said, get me the hell out of here. Then Sam Reinhart, who's drafted 3rd overall, a really good player, got asked about the time in Buffalo and where he stands. And he said, yeah, I really don't have any interest in the rebuild. I want to be able to compete for something. So Sam Reinhart basically said, get me the hell out of here. So 2 of your most important players, leaders on your team, want out. Well, then here's your captain. And that would be Jack Eichel. And what did we hear this week? Jack Eichel was talking to the press to end the season. And he said, yeah, I went to the doctor. They said they wanted to do treatment on me to my neck injury. They just wanted to do some treatment, rehab, and I'd be able to play. He wanted a second opinion. No problem. He went to a doctor who said, we want you to get surgery on your neck. And the Sabres say, well, our doctors don't think you need surgery. You can rehab it, come back, and be the same player. Jack Eichel obviously wants to get surgery. He's a bit pissed off that the Sabres leaked that he can just get rehab and come back and play, so it kind of makes him look bad. And he came out and basically told reporters, yeah, we'll see what happens next year wherever I'm playing. Basically saying, I want to be playing not in Buffalo. And I think bad. I don't know who leaked that. I assume Buffalo leaked that he can play without having surgery because it makes Jack Eichel look bad. Jack Eichel would not be leaking that story, but it's interesting nonetheless. Looking at this scenario, Jack Eichel wants to get surgery. I get that. It's his body. Now, under the collective bargaining agreement, he cannot have surgery on his own volition. The team needs to agree to it. They haven't, so it's kind of a holding pattern. Now, Buffalo is in a state of despair. Taylor Hall has rejuvenated himself in Boston. He talked about how just it was a black hole in Buffalo this season, and that's been their mantra for a decade. They haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. They're not going to make the playoffs next year. Their best players won out, and it's going to be hard to get free agents to go to Buffalo because they're going to be terrible, and it's just a bad state. Now, hiring the right coach is pivotal, but one thing I think they need to just look in the mirror and say is Jack Eichel is a fantastic player. Prior to this season, his points, his goals had gone up every season since he came in the league. I think he's a really good player. I don't think he's a stud, but I think he's a really good player. And I think they have to look in the mirror and say, he's not coming back here. Now, he's under contract for a number more years at $10 million a year, a big cap hit. But the most important thing for Kevin Adams right now is to trade Jack Eichel and try to get something of value back. Now, it gets tricky because if you trade Jack Eichel and say you trade him in July and he gets traded to the Rangers and you're not going to get equal value for a number of reasons. Number one, you trade him in July, Jack Eichel gets traded to the Rangers, he's going to want to have surgery. So next surgery, you're not coming back in a week. He likely won't play till November, December. So the team you're trading for, you're going to miss half the season without Jack Eichel. Presume your new number one center is out of the lineup for half the season. That's no go. So that means the return that the Sabres are getting is going to be minimal. So maybe you swallow your pride on this one and let him have surgery now because your return is that much sooner. If he has the surgery next week, well, he might be back by the time just past the start of the season. That's better than December. And if you trade him by the draft, which is in July, you're likely to get a better haul because you can at least say, hey, we know our timeline. He had surgery. He's rehabbing. The doctors can say he'll be back by blank date. You trade him in July at the draft. He's only back December. You're not getting equal value back. You're likely not getting equal value back. And you're trading Jack Eichel. There's rarely a time where you trade the best player in the deal and you're getting back better value. Now, maybe they will. At the time, Ryan Johansson was the better player than Seth Jones. Now, it's turned out that Seth Jones is a stud. Ryan Johansson is a bust. One of the worst trades in the history of the Nashville Predators organization. But with Jack, he's not coming back. And you can't have this dark cloud over the organization the whole year. All he has to do next season, say they don't, he has to go past the physical. He's guaranteed his money. He's sitting there stewing over it, and it's just negative. Buffalo is a negative organization right now. Kevin Adams needs to realize we cannot have this hang over us forever, and we need to get rid of this stain as soon as possible. And if you decide as an organization, yeah, it's untenable. He's not coming back. He hates us. Then maybe you let him have surgery. You go against your doctor's orders so that you can get your trade. You can get a haul back. Because if he's at full strength, he had a terrible season this year, but everybody did on Buffalo. Maybe the team trading for him will give you a number one prospect center and give you a first round pick plus whatever the hell else you want. I assume it's going to be a roster player. I think if Buffalo, if they're going to trade to the Rangers, just for instance, maybe you trade Eichel to the Rangers. In return, you get Mika Zibanejad, who's a number one, number two center. So you get a center back in return. And then potentially you get Kako in the deal. And then maybe you can get something else too. The Rangers obviously will not want to give away too many roster players, but you're getting you're getting Jack Eichel. So you're going to have to move salary in the deal anyway. You're taking $10 million in a flat cap. So money is going to have to come out too. So that's another thing they have to deal with. Now with Reinhart and Ristolainen, maybe it's easier to smooth this over, but the way they sounded in their exit interviews, it doesn't sound like it's a very good situation. Ristolainen's been rumored to be traded for 3 years now, so maybe that's finally done. Reinhart, who's not talked about often, but he's a really important player on the Sabres and brings it night in, night out. I mean, your best players want out. That just tells you everything you need to know about this organization. This isn't Kevin Adams' fault. He was left with this, but the Bagulas and past brass have just left this team deserted of talent. And they got some good people. Yeah, they have Victor Olofsson, who I think can be a good player. They got Dylan Cousins, the captain of Team Canada at the World Juniors. So you have some things to be happy about. But it's going to be another rebuild in Buffalo where they've been rebuilding for years, yet they never had any success. We've seen Edmonton get to the playoffs. We've seen Toronto at least get to the playoffs, where Buffalo never got back. After rebuild and rebuild, Columbus has made the playoffs multiple years in Buffalo's tenure. New Jersey. So does LA want Jack Eichel? Does Quentin Byfield come back in the deal? That's potential. But if it's me, Jack Eichel, you trade him, you move on, and maybe you let him have surgery so you can facilitate a deal where you get better return for your investment. We'll wrap up today talking about David Quinn in New York. And New York in the past week has really gone through a jumble where they fired John Davidson, they fired Jeff Gordon, and it really made no sense to me because Dolan said he wanted to make the playoffs. Well, look at your division. Who are you making it over? They should have finished 6th, but Philly was such a tire fire. I mean, you look at Washington, making the playoffs over them? No. Boston? No. Pittsburgh? No. Islanders? I did have the Islanders missing the playoffs, but to Philly. So for the season, I had the Rangers finishing 6th, and they finished 5th. So they did one better than I thought they would because Philly was such a disaster with Vigneault and Carter Hart couldn't make a save. So I just don't understand how you're supposed to make the playoffs. But anyway, they fired John Davidson. They fired Jeff Gordon. Stupid to me. And then Chris Drury becomes president and GM overnight. And it was reported he had a big part in hiring David Quinn originally. He was a college coach, but I guess he's the GM. He wants his own guy, and they want NHL experience behind the bench, which is always funny because teams that hire a college guy then pivot into the wily old veteran as soon as it happens. And there's a number of them available for New York. John Tortorella, they had him. He's known for his feuds with Larry Brooks. You remember Larry Brooks had his phone on. That was a good one, Brooksy. I mean, that would be great as a guy who covers sports and does his podcast. I get a lot of joy out of seeing Larry Brooks and John Tortorella go at it again. I don't think John Tortorella will be the hire. I know him and Glenn Sather did not have a great relationship. When they departed, Glenn Sather's still there behind the scenes smoking a cigar. So unlikely torts. Mike Babcock. He's one of the spots I think Babs could go because, number one, he's still owed 2 years of salary by Toronto. Dolan would pick that up. He's not afraid to pay a coach from Toronto to come do it, come coach for him. There's other owners, other teams where they would be too cheap. James Dolan's not one of them. He's given money to Larry Brown. He's given money to Isaiah Thomas. He's done some bad investments when it comes to head coaching. And I'm not saying Babs would be a bad hire, but he's not afraid to throw money around. That's what I'm saying. There's also Gerard Gallant. They've requested permission to interview him from Vegas. They've been granted that. He's heading to Latvia next week to coach Team Canada at the World Hockey Championships. Now, he would be a great hire. He was fired unceremoniously in Florida for no other reason than he didn't take orders from Tom Rowe, who turned out to be an idiot and really ruined that franchise. In Vegas, he was fired to get to a Stanley Cup final his first year as an expansion team. They get deep again. They lose the first round to San Jose, and they say, you know what, at midseason, we think we can do better. Peter DeBoer is on the market. We're going to move on. I can't argue with what they've done because they've had a successful tenure. Gerard Gallant, I still think is a great head coach. And he's a veteran. He knows what it takes around the league. I don't think he would be afraid of the New York media. And because New York media can can chew you out pretty quick. I don't think Gerard Gallant would be afraid of that situation. There's also Bruce Boudreau, who's one of the most winning coaches in regular season history in the NHL. He's another guy that didn't get a job this year as a head coach. I'd be surprised if he wasn't behind a bench again in his career. He shouldn't have to be an assistant coach the way he's coached his teams in Minnesota, in Anaheim. He's had a great track record of teams really liking him. In Washington, he won 2 President's trophies. So he's another guy. No, I think they have a lot of options. I would go with either Boudreau or Gerard Gallant. No, I think Babcock or I think Tortorella will coach again in the NHL, and I think he should. I think he gets a really bad rap for being a bad guy. Well, look at Columbus's roster and what he did with it. They had nothing, and he made the playoffs, and he beat the mighty Toronto Maple Leafs. That deserves some credit. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's won as many Stanley Cups as Mike Babcock as a head coach. He's won a Stanley Cup. Gerard Gallant's never won a Stanley Cup. Neither has Bruce Boudreau. But looking around, I think those are the names. But does Detroit move on from Blashill? Maybe. He's been there since Mike Babcock left, and he walked into a bad situation because they made the playoffs 22 years in a row, and they were going to tank. So he's in the tough spot. Does Nashville move on from their coach if they lose in the first round, which they likely will? We're going to see good teams lose in the first round. Do they move on? Again, Dominic Ducharme, is he guaranteed to come back to Montreal? I don't think so. They likely wouldn't hire any of these guys because you need to speak French. But, there's a potential landing spot. I don't think Laviolette would go in Washington. I don't think Cassidy would go in Boston. Looking around, Trotz would be safe. Mike Sullivan will be back. Out west, who knows? St. Louis. If you lose in the first round, does Craig Berube come back? He won a Stanley Cup, but you lose in the first round last year. If you lose in the first round again, I don't think there's a guarantee Craig Berube's back. And you got a veteran team. Do you want another veteran coach behind the bench? I think St. Louis is a potential team that if they fall early in the playoffs, especially if it's a lopsided series, maybe they move on from their current head coach and look elsewhere. Vegas, I think they keep Peter DeBoer. Colorado, Bednar. Minnesota with Dean Evison, I think he'd stick around. John Cooper, Tampa, I think he'd be back. Winnipeg with Paul Maurice. I don't know. He's been there a long time. And if they lose, it'd be a first-round exit again. Disappointing season in Winnipeg. There's a potential name for you. Winnipeg Jets firing Paul Maurice. I think he's a great coach, but you expect to win in this league. You got Scheifele. You traded for Dubois. Does Chevalier say, well, what the hell? Why aren't we getting over the hump? I gave you the pieces and you couldn't deliver. Who knows? It's all a possibility. That's all I'm saying here. Rob Brendamore. Does he return to Carolina? Because otherwise, he's a free agent on the market and somebody has to take that job in Carolina. It'll be cheap, but what happens there? So still a lot to be decided. A lot of head coaches on the market. Playoffs starting tomorrow. Obviously, exciting times where we'll see Bruins Capitals tomorrow night. But we'll keep eyes and ears open for head coaching, for meetings, and I'll update you guys as I know more. But everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather. It's been fun today. 3 podcasts in one day. It's a new record for me, but I've had a lot to say and a lot of energy. So loving every minute of it. But lots more content coming with the playoffs. We'll be doing a lot of shows and keeping you guys entertained, hopefully, throughout the postseasons. So happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.